Welcome to Wednesday Wanderings. My name is Mark Long, rector of the parish of St Andrew in Newlands, Cape Town. My apologies that Wednesday has wandered into Thursday. Life's been a little up and down recently and is likely to continue to be. Next week, I think I will probably wander off completely as I'm involved in a 3-day residential meeting, and so it's unlikely I will get time to wander with you, sadly. COVID continues to impact on our lives. I'm probably a little bit more personally aware of it, having been in quarantine for the last 10 days, having been in close contact with someone who tested positive. I'm also aware that certainly in the congregation and even amongst friends, far more people seem to be reporting positive infections at the moment. And numbers here in the Western Cape certainly continue to climb at the moment. Although hopefully they are hitting that peak and beginning to plateau a bit. We live with this disease and we're going to continue to have to live with it. It's going to continue to impact on our economy and just the everydayness of our lives, certainly well into next year, if all reports are to be believed. But I'd like to just ask the question this morning, who do you trust? Who do you trust? And why do you trust them? Now, I ask that question particularly in the context of the pandemic and in the context of whether or not you have chosen to be vaccinated. In talking with one of our lay leaders yesterday, a concerning statistic is that something like 25% of people of faith choose not to be vaccinated. And the reason given would appear to be that we trust in God. Now, clearly trusting in God's an important thing. But I would like to suggest strongly that actually trusting in the gifts and tools that God gives us is also an important part of trusting in God. God has given us modern medicine, and these vaccinations are part of that gift. I'm aware again in terms of 1 or 2 people I know or families who've been infected by COVID, that even one injection or the first injection of 2, if you're on the Pfizer, appears to make a bit of a difference. And it really does lessen the danger of severe COVID and certainly lessens the danger of dying. And for me, that seems to be a good and reasonable reason for actually being vaccinated, whatever the wider impact of that is, just in terms of our own experience of this disease. Now, one of the challenges, of course, is that one hears every now and then that somebody who has been fully vaccinated dies of COVID. Sometimes we just hear that people die after being vaccinated. And reality is that people died before COVID came on the scene. Death is not new to this disease in our lives, but it has taken so many of us around the world. I'm also aware that as soon as we hear something like that, for some reason, the fact that we may know 1,000 people who've been vaccinated and are still alive, just to hear of one immediately makes us suspicious. And so again, my question comes, who do we trust? And what information do we trust? There's a huge amount of misinformation out there. There are conspiracy theories by the dozen. And so the question of trust really is important. Because while from a faith perspective, we hopefully always trust God, we need to trust that those who speak to us about information that affects our health, our community, our ability to relate with each other, our ability to meet physically going forward. We need to know why or why not we are trusting certain information and not other information. Every now and then there's information put out by doctors that are questioning the safety of vaccinations. And I would like to just suggest that, if I have some brain issue, I'm really not going to go and visit an orthopedic surgeon, because I don't expect an orthopedic surgeon to have much understanding of neurological and brain-related issues. I'm going to go and see a neurologist to deal with that. So we kind of pick up information from medical and other sources without actually saying, are these people qualified to comment on this? In our congregation here, we have a public health specialist, and he has been hugely helpful in just pointing us in the right direction with this and helping us understand the nature of the vaccines that we are being offered, the safety of those vaccines, that they haven't just been developed in the last couple of weeks, that there has been a process, that they're built on processes going back over a period of time. And so I'm actually, for myself, willing to trust a public health specialist when it comes to dealing with issues relating to this disease. There are, of course, comments that come out about things like ivermectin and other things. I saw a report the other day suggesting that Big Pharma was trying to squash ivermectin. Ivermectin is big pharma. So let's be wise as to how we deal with the information we receive. And actually just be open to the gift that God gives us in this vaccine. Now, of course, I'm saying that to you, and whether or not you trust me is a question. Whether or not you trust the sources that I base my trust in the vaccine on is also open, doubtless, to question. But that's why I'm saying to you, who do you trust? And what information are you allowing to direct your thinking? It's important that we think about that in terms of COVID and in terms of the vaccination that we are offered and the impact of that on our lives. It's more important too, though, to recognize it's not just about the vaccination. It's actually about everything in our lives. Why do we accept certain information? Why do we turf other information out? What is it that actually directs us in that? And in a world where social media is all over the place, in a world in which we have such incredible access to information, how do we make the distinction between that which is false, that which is suspect, that which is reasonably reliable, and that which is fully reliable? And again, it comes down to, who do you trust? And I would really encourage you to always look at the sources and where this kind of information comes from. I believe that's true, whether it has to do with medicine, whether it has to do with economics and politics and society. It has to do with our faith. Who do you trust when you come to issues of faith? Who do you trust to direct and to guide and to speak the truth? And of course, truth in a postmodern world, that has all sorts of questions related to it as well. But ultimately, there are those that we trust. There are sources that we hold to. And we need to be asking ourselves the important question of why. Because as we explore that why, it will help us understand the kind of principles, the foundation of just who we are, what we believe, and why we believe it, and why we accept certain information into that space and not other information. Far too often, we do this unconsciously. And so I'm requesting and pleading that, in fact, we become really conscious about what information we're listening to, who it's coming from, what are the questions we're asking about the validity of the information and the sources of that information, and really trusting in what is good for us. So please, if whatever information you are accessing and relying on, look at it carefully. And I would really plead that you consider that information that talks to the importance of being vaccinated at this time and point in our lives, and at this point in the life of our world and the country that we live in. Let's make a difference, not just for me or you, but for the society that we're part of, that we can find ways to move forward and to live more fully once again. God bless.